Hello, welcome to a tutorial on Rubistar, the rubric creating site for teachers. This is Terry Morriston. This is a screencast-o-matic tutorial created for EDU 505. Rubistar is a well-known site that can help teachers make the frequently required rubrics for their classes. In this program, the first thing you will have to do is create your account. The account will want your first name, last name, a password, and your zip code. Remember to create a username that you wouldn't mind your students seeing. Once you have created your account, your opening screen will look like the one that you see on my screen. In the beginning, you're really going to take a look at two options. That is Find Rubric, where you can find a rubric that somebody else has made, and Create Rubric, where you can create your own, either based on a template or from original design. You will see that there is the ability to make rubrics interactive. However, this is done with a piece of software called Waypoint, which is a subscription software. Because that costs additional funds, we won't be looking at it. Otherwise, Rubistar is a free site. We're going to begin by doing Find a Rubric, because there's often no reason to create a rubric if somebody that has done a nice job on making a rubric that you can use in your class. So the first thing you do for Find Rubric is to click on the link. You will go to a keyword search box. I'm going to search for discussion board because a lot of teachers say that their students don't make very solid posts or robust posts on the discussion board. And one of the best ways to fix that is to create a rubric that the students will know this is what I have to do. In the realm of this course, we don't really take the time to explain rubrics, but you can see that a rubric is something that needs to be planned very carefully before you sit down to a site like this. You need to think about what are my standards and what are my objectives, and then design your rubric to show your students how they will know that they've met those standards and they've met those objectives if they've completed the work. So the rubric is not simply, this is how I grade my students, but it's, this is what my students need to be able to do, this is what my students need to know. Again, we won't be taking the time to really talk about rubrics in and of themselves. Tonight's tutorial is just how to use this particular site. So once I have typed in the word discussion board, I'm going to hit search, and you're going to see that there are 536 rubrics for a discussion board. It can take some time to actually find the rubric that you think will work most carefully for you. So you're going to have to go through a lot of these rubrics. So once you find one that you like, you're going to want to save it so you can come back to it. To find the rubrics, you have to scroll past the box with all of the numbers. Now, this time I have screened through some of these rubrics, and I have found this one that I think is a model that I can use. So I click on its title, and I can see that I can review the categories, and the categories would be those areas that you would assess or evaluate. So promptness and initiative, delivery of post, relevance of post, and so forth. These are the rows. And then I can also take a look and see if I like the grading, the columns, okay, the assessment category, so below average, acceptable, meets expectations, and model learner. And so if I decide that this is something that I like, then I can click this button and print this page. And remember, printing doesn't always have to mean you print to paper. You can print to file by using something like Qt PDF Writer. And we've talked about that in some of our other tutorials in this particular class. Remember that Waypoint is a pay product, so we're going to use print this page. And basically that's all you need to do in order to find a rubric in Rubistar. If you found a rubric that you like and then you have saved it to a file, you can edit it. But sometimes you don't want to use somebody else's rubric, you want to make your own. In that case, you're going to create rubric. We're going to click that. There's two ways you can create your own rubric. One is to use a template, and this is what you see here at the top of the page, a customizable rubric. So let's take a look at something that we might want to use here. I'm going to click on website design since that's something that we do in this course. And when I do, I'm going to be given a box that looks blank. But if I use the pull down arrows, I can find categories that might be useful to me in designing my rubric. So I go to the category box and I can see a list of items that I might want to evaluate on a website. Color choices, fonts, compatibility, graphics, links, copyright, cooperative work, images, and so forth. So for this one, I'm going to say that the first thing I'm going to take a look at is fonts. Once I click fonts, then my rubric populates across, and you can see that it goes from the highest quality, fonts are consistent, easy to read, point size, right in here, to maybe not as specific or particular. And now I can go and pick a different category. So this time I'm going to pick graphics, and it populates again. But if I don't like something that is there, then I can take something off. And I can edit. I don't always have to use one of the pre-designed categories. If I don't like their category, I can put something in here that I happen to like. If I do choose my own category, then I'm going to have to start typing in this box and populate the box myself since it's not one of the pre-designed products. I can add as many categories as I want. Once I've put in all the categories that I need, now I need to put my assessment titles at the top in my columns. And so I will want to know in advance what I'm going to place here. In this particular case, I've typed exemplary, developing, beginning, and amateur. So now you can see my rubric is starting to take shape. After I've put in everything that I want, I click the Submit button. If I've made a mistake, it's going to tell me. In this case, it told me that I didn't have my title on, so now I have to go back to the top, fill in my title. It never lets you publish a rubric without a title. And then again, I've got to scroll back down to the bottom and click Submit. An important point is that it tells you right here that the rubric is not yet saved. You do have a chance to modify your rubric at this point once you can see how your rubric looks. But when you are finished with your rubric, you have to decide whether you're going to print and download it or make it available online. If you choose print or download, the rubric is yours and you're responsible for storing it and keeping it. If you do make it available online, then everybody else can use it and you can always go to the rubistar page to find it. That's totally your decision. In this case, I've chosen print or download so I can show you what some of the options are. I can print my rubric, and again, I can print that to a PDF file or to a printer. I can create an offline browser document, which basically means it's going to be a web page. Or I can download it into the Excel format, and then I can use Excel later on to manipulate it. So those are the options that you have and can choose. There's a second way to create a rubric from Rubistar, and that is to create one totally from scratch without their template. Go back to the Rubistar page, choose Create a Rubric, and then scroll below all the listings of templates until you find the words that say Create a Rubric from Scratch, and then you click the blue ink below that. Here I will have to place my title. And I'm going to have to start answering some questions. The first question is the number of vertical columns that I'm going to have. In this case, I'm going to say 4. I have to decide whether my rubric is permanent or temporary. Because this is a tutorial, I'm going to make it temporary, and it'll give me an expiration date. Then I click Submit. The next thing that I'm going to do is edit my columns. And usually on the right side of the page, you're going to find the button that's similar to a next button so that you can go on. So I click Edit Columns. And now I can add more columns to the page. I don't always need to do that. I'm going to get a chance to rename these columns later. So I'm going to skip this page unless I need another column. I've changed my mind about the numbers. I need another, but I don't. So I'm going to go on to the row names now. And here I can put in those categories of content that I wish to assess. So maybe timeliness might be one, and you really should have these planned in advance, and that's why I say that planning is very important. So for time sake, we're just going to put in a few of these tonight. So I have timeliness, relevance, and mechanics. It's very important to scroll to the bottom so you see the Add New Rows and click that. If I want to change them or move them, I'm giving the chance to do that, but right now I like mine the way that they are. I'm not going to add any more, so I'm going over here and I click Edit Rubric Contents. So here you can see my categories, timeliness, relevance, mechanics are showing up, and now I have to name my columns. So again, I'm going to put things like exemplary, or notice sometimes I can put in the number, such as the number 3, meaning 3 points. If I don't want to do that, I don't have to, of course. But I should be consistent. So if I'm not going to use numbers in one column, I can't use them anywhere else. Now I would have to fill in each one of these boxes with my own criteria. When I'm done with that, I would click Submit. And now that's all I've needed to do. Here is my rubric, and this page is very similar to the one that we saw before. I can print my completed rubric.